And after that experience with this Dogman happened, I only go to the one location. So I don't go to my normal area. I go to this other location, and I get out at the first trail that I could see, and I walked around and I looked, and there was some tree breaks. They were all broken off about a foot and a half off the ground, and these trees that were all broken right there in the general vicinity were made into an asterisk. Mm-hmm. And it was just laying flat on the ground. It was a huge asterisk. I mean, it was probably 20 foot long. But I don't know. I can't remember even how wide it was, but it was just a huge asterisk laying there flat on the ground. And I was like, okay, that's obvious Bigfoot sign, because Dogman was the last thing on my mind. And I go walking around in that area some more, and I find these huge rock stacks. These rocks, I don't know how much they weighed, but they were huge, and they were stacked in threes. And there is a correlation between the Bigfoot and threes. I don't know why they associate with threes, but they just do. So I was like, okay, this is an all right area. I'm not too keen on it, but these tree breaks were fresh, so I might come back here. So I left and went back to the truck, and I drove further up the mountain, and I hit this mountain trail that leads to a waterfall. And I'm hiking along, zigzagging around through there, across this first creek that had a rinky-dink bridge, and I'm zigzagging around, and I come across two more creeks. One of them had a bridge that went across it, and the other one had a bridge when it really didn't need a bridge because that creek was little. And I crossed that one, and I'm zigzagging around, and I go down, and I cross this creek that had a culvert. Well, the path was washed away, and it was essentially just the culvert. So I walked across the culvert, I go up, and there's a Y in the trail. The trail to the right was overgrown and not maintained by the Park Services. I was like, you know what? I'm going up the mountain. And I take that left, and I go up the trail, and I see this game trail that runs across. And I'm like, okay. So I hit the game trail, and I go right, and I'm looking, and there's these twist breaks. Now, for those who don't know what a twist break is, that's the sign that the Sasquatch do, where it takes something with hands to twist a tree, and you can see the fibers playing out of it. It's a significant sign that they do. And the way to tell is, honestly, if you look around for any of the other trees and they're not broken like that, it's most likely it's the Sasquatch and not the wind. And for these, there was two. The first one, the one that was lower down, the one that was higher up the mountain, it was 8.5 feet off the ground. It was twisted and broken. The other one, it was at least 12 feet off the ground. It was twisted and broken facing down. So the other one was twisted and broke facing up. The other one was twisted and broke facing down. There was no other trees in that area that were broke and twisted like that. It was just those two. And I was like, okay, I guess this is a sign to go up the mountain. And as I was walking around in that area, I had found some smaller stick structures that I believe that the juvenile had made, because they were smaller sticks, and they were just intertwined and just mangled together like with intent. So I get back to the main trail, and I'm going up, and I come across the knoll, and the trail goes to the right a little bit, and it makes two curves. I come to the first curve, and before I get into the first curve, I remembered that I sent my wife my location over the satellite, because I did not tell her that I was going to a new location. And I had like 34% battery. And I go around the curve, and I check the phone again. It says 10% battery, and it shut off. Well, by the time that I had sent her my location over satellite, it had started to snow, and it was getting colder. I packed light. I just had on a hoodie, my jeans, and my mutt boots. I didn't even have a toboggan on. I just had a hat. So I was starting to get cold, and I was like, well, I got a decision to make after that phone shut up. I was like, I can go up a little bit further, I can turn around. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm not getting froze to death out here. So I turned around, and I came back around the curve, and it wasn't 20 yards after coming around the curve and the straightaway, I heard something behind me to my right moving. And I was like, okay, this is probably a Bigfoot because of the signs that I'm finding. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to turn, and it's going to be there. So I stopped on a dime, and I turned, and I locked eyes on it. This huge dark brown wolf with the brightest yellow eyes of anything I've ever seen. Wow. It was laying flat on the ground. just dead flat. I couldn't really see its arms or nothing. I could just see the head and the body outline from the shoulders, and it was just laying flat on the ground. I was like, okay, this is not. As I was like, this is something that is not good. I was like, this is something that could take me out with ease. So this thing pushes itself up with its forearms to a bipedal position, and it takes 3 steps, and it's right there, not even 15 yards away from me. And it has one of its hands propped up on the tree. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen a raccoon's hands up close, but these dogmen, their hands are like a large raccoon hand. It is unbelievable. The claws are huge. So this is I can describe this thing down to a T. The top of its head, in between its ears, was kind of flat. It had huge ears like a German Shepherd. The eyes were just so bright and yellow, like they were just self-illuminating in a sense. Its nose was snudged into its snout. It had a mane running down the back of its neck. I don't know how far down the back it went, but I could tell that there was a mane essentially there. It had a big poofy tail like a fox's. But the biggest distinction of this thing to me was the legs. This thing didn't have backwards facing legs like most accounts that you hear of Dogman. This thing had forward facing legs like a human. Now I don't know if it was a werewolf but I'm tending leaning to some kind of Dogman hybrid that the government powers that be has cooked up, I think. This thing locks eyes. It's growling and snarling. And I'm in fear, and like there's a difference when you look into the eyes of a Bigfoot. There's a humanness to it. Essentially, there's something human about it. But when you look into the eyes of one of these dogmen, it's not a very, very good feeling. My life was flashing before my eyes.
Subscribe now and turn on the notifications to join us on this extraordinary journey into the unknown.